Presentation. My name is Logan, and to begin, I would like to introduce my mentor and evaluator, Joel Ghost, the school's media specialist, as well as my other evaluator, Chris Brower, the school's principal, and finally, my parents, Rob and Dee Weber. The inspiration for my project came from the fact that creativity defined the early years of my life. At a young age, I constantly found myself building, designing, or creating something. And I remained satisfied with the creative mediums available to me until I was introduced to computers. Through my interactions with computers, I realized that the internet is the most diverse and accessible resource, and it's for everyone. This idea of unparalleled connectivity between the entire world fascinated me, so I decided I want to contribute in some way to the furthering of the internet and computers in general. The only problem was I didn't know how. I had only vaguely heard the word programming, but I was intent on discovering the meaning of it, and after many times of trying to learn programming on my own and struggling, I came to seek out the help of Miss Bose, and she organized a computer science class for my friends and me. So, since then, I've only been learning more and more each day, and this year I finally had a chance to show what I've learned. So for my senior project, I decided to exhibit the essential skills of a computer programmer by programming and developing a game of my own creation. So in order to complete my project, there are a number of vital steps to be taken. To begin, I needed a mentor that knew my programming preferences. This criterion was important to me because a mentor that knew my programming preferences would greatly increase the speed of my development process, and there would be no halts. For the design portion of the project, I needed to create concept art and gameplay ideas to have a sense of direction for where I would be going. It was important that I store these ideas somehow so I could reference them in the future. And then once I had the ideas, I needed to program the foundation for the game. The first aspect of programming the foundation was choosing a language. Then I had to begin writing code to lay the foundation for the game. Using the ideas I thought of in the design phase, I then had to transfer the gameplay elements into the game's code. Once the elements were implemented, I needed to create levels that made use of the elements in a creative way. To polish the game, I required art and music to entice the player. The art needed to fit with the theme of the game, and the music needed to set the atmosphere but not be overwhelming. To finish the game development process, I distributed the game to a number of playtesters so they could play the game, find bugs, and give suggestions on level design. After receiving their suggestions, I would make adjustments to whatever aspect of the game their suggestions related to. So, the ultimate goal of my project was to determine if computer science is a suitable major for me. So, the specifics of this goal included familiarizing myself with the programming workflow, applying my knowledge of computers in creative ways, and learning how to combine various low-level elements into a large-scale project. So for the first step of my project, I considered having a mentor, as a computer scientist as my mentor, but I quickly realized finding one due to the scarcity of computer science majors in Kittitas would require more time than I had to offer or require long, frequent drives to other cities. After discovering this problem, I decided Miss Bose would serve as an excellent mentor because she knows me personally and organized the original freshman computer science course that taught me programming. So once I chose Miss Bose to be my mentor, I began designing the game. I drew concept art for the visual aspect of the game and created gameplay ideas to challenge the player and basically make the game fun. And I tried to keep the ideas somewhat abstract so I had room to toy with the game's mechanics in the future. And after running through all the ideas, I decided the game would be a level-based platformer named Junkbot. The premise of the game is the player is a robot going through a maintenance facility in hopes of removing excess junk from its body. And I geared the game, knowing this was the premise of the game, I geared the game towards having a clean factory sort of theme. So I made the game's art have a heavy favor for the color gray, and I gave all the entities some type of clean aspect. And so for future reference, I compiled all of these ideas into a notebook that I could carry with me everywhere. So the notebook was important because it helped to add to the overall mobility and convenience of the project. And so this is just for anybody who's not sure what a platformer is. If you've ever played Super Mario's or seen somebody play that, or Metroid. So there's three essential aspects to it. There is the player, of course, and the enemies, and a general sense of direction to the right to get to the end of the level. So once I had the basic idea of the game, I began to work on the programming side of the project. And the beginning choice to every programming project is, what programming language will I use? Well, I chose Java because it's the first programming language I ever learned. It can be run everywhere, so that means anyone with a computer can run it, so it's very compatible. And compatibility became especially important during the feedback phase. And also necessary for the success of my project was the fact that Java is very simple. So I was able to ultimately meet my deadlines on time because it's a lot easier to code. So before I dove into the creation of my game, I concerned myself with security and backing up my code. To satisfy this concern, I use a service known as Git, which is a web service which uploads your code so I can access it anywhere. It made my project extremely mobile, so I could constantly work on it even at school. And it eliminates any possibility of data loss. So I had the ingredients for a game, but now I need to put them together. This point was the first step involving code actually being written. So I created an infrastructure in my code that was pragmatic and easy to coordinate with future code. So in layman's terms, I began developing the foundation of the game that allowed drawing the screen and playing audio files, and I kept a high priority on keeping the code very manageable. And very early in the project, I decided I should split JumpBot into two projects. One project that served only as the engine, which I named Java 2D, as well as another project which I named JumpBot. And as of right now, JumpBot has about 3,000 lines of code, and Java 2D has 1,000 lines of code. So that's kind of just to let you know the scale of the project. It's rather big just from creating a small platformer. So it lets you appreciate how difficult it is just to make something very small. So this is actually where I spent most of my time. This is the screen that I spent staring hours at. So this is just the code window where everything that I would be coding would be in. And then to the left is all the projects that I was using. So there's Java 2D and JumpBot. And that's essentially what most of the project looked like. So the base of the project was completed. So I then began working on implementing the gameplay elements that make my game unique. By referencing the ideas in my notebook, creative notebook, I translated the gameplay concepts into code. The process of translation ended up being the most time-consuming part of the project, so it took about 1 to 3 hours per day since the beginning of the trimester. So I estimated that out to be 100 hours total. So all of the components that created the gameplay were finished, but the next step incorporated the gameplay elements I had developed into levels. The difficulty in this task came from its high reliance on creativity. So the game could either be good or mediocre based on how I integrated all the levels and the mechanics together. So the balancing it became a very difficult task, but it was aided by the player feedback phase. So I tried to keep the levels challenging enough to satisfy the player when they completed them, yet easy enough that they wouldn't lose interest. So the game was now playable, however there were no visual effects or art to appeal to the player. So using concept art from my notebook as a guide, I created the art in Photoshop. And the art style I decided to use is pixel art, which is a type of digital art where each individual pixel is visible in the final image. I achieved a retro look in the pixel art by using a 32 color palette, which effectively limited the number of colors I was able to draw with. So using a color palette made the designing the art more difficult, but it ultimately added a certain shine to the game, and it added to the retro look, and it fit with the style of platformers. I also added particle effects, which served only as a means of adding visual excitement. So this is what Photoshop, it's a small portion of the window that I was working in, but you can see each of these pixels is visible, and that's basically the gist of pixel art. So that was where I would be drawing, and then up there, that's all the colors I was able to use. I restricted myself to only that much. So just a little cause and effect, or just a before and after of the art. So here's the art before the art was implemented, and here's after. So it's dramatically better, and then after particles were added. So you can't really see the effect of the particles in this picture because it has motion, but you get the idea. So, in order to adhere to the game's theme consistently, I needed audio that went well with the pixel art I drew. I used a program called SFXR, which generates game sound effects quickly and effectively. Then for the game's music, I realized I didn't have enough time to create my own music, and creating my own music would distract me from the point of my project. So I found free music on the internet, and I tried to make it fit the robotic theme of my JumpBot. So this is what SFXR looks like. So on the left-hand side, you see a number of presets for sounds that are very common in games. And then once you had one of the base sound effects, you went to the middle and you adjust the sliders. So there's a lot of options, but each of them tweaks the sound in a certain way. So then once you have a sound that you want, you export it, and then I can put it right into the game. So it's very quick. So once I began adding the sound effects and music, I noticed the time that the game needed in order to start up was increasing. Eventually, JumpBot took upwards of 10 seconds just to get to the main menu. So this delay was unanticipated, so I needed to make a loading screen to let the player know that resources were being loaded. So here's what the loading screen actually ended up looking like. So it's very green, sort of fitting the cleaning type of thing. So you see loading, which is to let them know that it's loading. Then you see which resource is being loaded, and then a progress bar to let the player know how far the game is loaded. So I sent JumpBot to Tyler McCurvin and Grant Oursland for the playtesting phase. And they offered a lot of feedback. Some of the bugs they found included, if a cleaning bot collided horizontally with the player, then the player would be flung out of the level and fall infinitely. So I clearly had to fix that, or it'd be game breaking. And then CleanerBot vertical collision with the player would stick the player's head in the wall. So I had to fix these. They're still a little bit buggy, but I tried to fix it as much as I could. But some of the design suggestions they gave me included slowing down turret shots on certain levels because they felt it was too difficult, and speeding up CleanerBots because they felt it was slowing down the pace of the game. And finally, they asked me to remake some of the art for turrets because it was circular and they felt it didn't fit with the rectangular theme of JumpBot. And so essentially, JumpBot was complete and my senior project was finished. So I enjoyed I enjoyed doing this project and completing it immensely, and I feel very confident saying computer science is a fascinating and exciting field that I would love to work in. I realize that many jobs in this field of computer science will not involve creating art like my project did, but I'm satisfied with the design and development processes on their own. Though I finished all the objectives for my deadlines, I will attempt to continue development of JumpBot until I find it is releasable on the internet. So now that I'm nearing the end of my presentation, I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Boast for agreeing to mentor me for my project, giving me plenty of room to work while still being strict with deadlines, and even allowing me to present my project to a class of her 6th grade programming, or middle school programming students this morning. So, this is for you. So now, as a final note, for any future seniors looking to carry out a senior project comparable to mine, I would like to share some advice. Though a senior project is meant to teach, I would heavily recommend against any programming project if the student has not learned or practiced any form of programming. Programming is an exceptionally difficult skill to learn, and I was only able to complete my project because I have 4 years of programming experience under my belt. So I would instead recommend future seniors to job shadow a computer science major if they can find one and are interested in computer science. So now, are there any questions? Rob?
Can we see a demo of what you have?
Oh, yes. sure that you guys were interested. So I did have a gameplay video of me playing, but it didn't work on this computer. So I can instead show you my attempt at playing. So this is what it looks like in game. You can see all the particle effects actually working. And I tried to go with a level design that didn't actually tell the player what to do, but instead forced the player to learn on their own. It's a game tactic that was implemented in a game called Mega Man. Okay, I'm not very good. Not under pressure.
Can you, I don't know if you can do it on that machine or if you just show it on your laptop, some more of that code?
Oh, the code?
Yeah, because,
Well, if I could hook up my laptop, I could just turn my screen.
I know these guys have probably seen it,
So,
because they've been watching you, and I know you guys have seen it, but Mr. Brower needs to see it.
So this is.
And I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Can you bring it closer, or is it? The thing is when you say,
I don't
does it
know.
have to be plugged in? When you say 3,000 lines of code, that's pretty amazing, because with my sixth graders, if we can get 8 lines in without messing up or having some sort of syntax error, that's really good. And so 3,000 to make all of that go is
Can you
really self-taught. He's really self-taught. He's pretty stinking cool in my opinion.
My question, if you had, do you think that two parts, do you think you use your time wisely? And if you had another week to work on this, what would you adjust or change?
I think I have enough time. Do I think I use my time wisely?
Yes.
Yeah, I was constantly trying to. It was constantly a rush when I was. But I enjoyed it, so that's why I was able to mainly keep myself motivated. And I just added features. I was thinking to myself, what can I do to make myself meet the deadlines, yet make the game actually fun and not have that kind of learning game, really boring kind of feel to it. And what was the second part?
If you had another week to work on the project, would you adjust anything? What would you change?
I probably wouldn't change much. I would try to add more levels, because right now I have about 7 just to showcase the interaction possibilities between just the few elements that I have, like the turrets and the moving cleaner bots, and even later on you get a jetpack.
So my comment, sorry, I'm going to talk for a minute. It is, we talked about the dynamics, the complexity of this project. But the thing that and that alone is outstanding and amazing, but the thing that I'm impressed with your presentation skills. You stood up there and delivered. This won't be the last time you present something like this. You have a gift. And you're able to articulate it, you have the vernacular, this stage is not too big for you. And I see 10 years, 5 years down the road, it's just gonna, and this is just a snapshot of what you were capable of doing. Because it's not just doing it, it's being able to explain it and get the people and up in front of people, you had great eye contact, you used appropriate language, you were prepared. Did he seem nervous? You didn't seem nervous. You seemed like you were in control and you were confident in what you were doing. Okay? So, it's the whole thing. It was very nice. It was well done. I'm impressed. So.
Anybody else want to say that?
I'm in.